Welcome to the Process Heating and Cooling Podcast. This is Linda Becker, the Associate Publisher and Editor of Process Heating and Process Cooling. Today, I'm joined by Edye Buchanan. Edye is a sales specialist at BriskHeat Corporation in Columbus, Ohio. She specializes in finding new applications for electric heating elements and temperature control products in markets including semiconductor and composite manufacturing, process heating, and freeze protection. Edye has more than 25 years of experience in design and manufacturing engineering and has published articles on thermal efficiency, process heating, and advanced material processing. She's also an international director for the SME, the Society of Manufacturing Engineers. As process heating and process cooling leave the marketplace, I wanted to pivot from our usual focus, which has been industrial process project planning and execution, to get a roadmap from key manufacturers and stakeholders in the industry. So thanks for joining me today, Edye, to share your insights.
Well, thank you, Linda. Thanks for reaching out to me and to get my perspectives on the industry. And let me say my colleagues and I are very sorry to see the magazine ending. I know personally I've been reading it for a lot of years, as do a lot of other people here. But let me tell you a little bit more about BriskHeat. We've been in business for almost 75 years, doing mostly flexible heating elements and temperature controllers and accessories. We are used in a lot of processes, including viscosity control, condensation prevention, process heating, and then freeze protection. Products are used worldwide for surface heating and heat trace applications. We were purchased by NEVA about 5 years ago, right before I started. And since then, we've been able to add a lot of other heating elements to our portfolio, so we can serve a lot more industries with mica-banded nozzle heaters, cartridge heaters, tubular heaters, and the like. We serve a wide variety of industries. We've talked about semiconductor manufacturing. Oil and gas is another important industry for us, as well as composites. So, Linda, freeze protection is another application where BriskHeat offers total solutions. We have several different types of heating cable that's different wattages and designed for different temperatures. This helps us meet the needs for the residential, commercial, and industrial customers. We have some low-profile connection kits that also include splices and tees, and they fit real nicely under the insulation. Makes everything easy to install, and it looks nice and does a good job. We also, in the fall, sell a lot of container heaters because they can be used when the temperatures get colder to not only prevent chemicals from freezing, but also to reduce the viscosity so liquids aren't as thick, things are easier to pour. This year, we came out with a new freeze protection maintenance guide that's been updated to include a section on energy efficiency. It's truly amazing how much energy can be saved when you do things like seal windows and add insulation.
From your perspective, what does the process heating and cooling industry do well? What are some of the things that we can build on?
I think as an industry, we do really well with constant innovation. It's a matter of, looking at a process and then determining whether or not adding heat or cooling is going to change how the process works. And if it's a desirable, you would add the heating or cooling to the process to improve it. But then I think after that, it's how can I make the process better? Is there a different kind of heat that I can use? Sometimes it's as critical as maintaining a temperature. So there's a lot of innovation to try and perfect the process. And I think generationally, you see more people concerned with sustainability. How can we complete a process by consuming less energy? Is there a way that we can promote better product quality and reduce waste? And looking at the materials to see whether or not they can be reused or recycled. I think another important thing that we have as far as a strength is adaptability. So we look a lot at new energy sources that can be used for heating and cooling. And then with that, you need to refine how you can capture the energy, store it, and then be able to use it. And then diversification, as I said, a lot of different types of heaters. So if we look at something like viscosity control, we can put surface heating around the drum heater. We can also do, say, an immersion heater to heat from the inside, and that way get, the fluid to be more liquid quicker. So there's just a lot of different strengths we have as far as innovation and some of the other diversification and adaptability.
Right. It's interesting that you say that because in a sense, those all work together. Being adaptable, having a lot of different options means that you can make the best choice. So from your perspective, what are some of the things that process heating and cooling can improve on? Where can we improve on looking forward?
It's not necessarily unique to the process heating and cooling industry, but I think collaboration is really important. I think one of the lessons we learned during the pandemic was you had competitors that were working together. So you had one pharmaceutical company going to another one and saying, hey, we need more manufacturing area, we need different equipment. And how can we, instead of being competitors, let's collaborate on this so that we can make this essential product. And then I think if you look at, there's the government-backed manufacturing institutes. Those are all built around collaboration also, where you have competitive companies that are also working with educational institutions. And so there's a lot of collaboration around there with, defense and new material research, digital manufacturing. So there's a lot of collaboration, which I think is successful to the industry.
Good point. So do you see any roadblocks in our path to moving forward? Look, things like, decarbonization, sustainability, ESG goals, those things can sometimes feel like a roadblock, but what would be some of your suggestions or things that really stand in our way?
So, you can look at it one way and you could look at it a different way. So you would have some companies that would look at decarbonization as a roadblock, but in other cases, it's an opportunity. So I used to work for a company called Fees North American Combustion, and we were doing hydrogen combustion research years ago and working with recuperative burners. So those were all designed to be more energy efficient, reduce carbon footprint, greenhouse gases. And we see the same thing here with BriskHeat because we're doing electrical heat as opposed to oil and gas as a fuel source. And so we see companies that are, interested in electrification. So you see boilers that used to run on natural gas or fuel oil that are now being run with electric heat. So at BriskHeat, we kind of see decarbonization as more of an opportunity than a roadblock. And I think there's other companies that see it the same way. And then commoditization is, another thing that's a roadblock. And as far as what my job is and what I do is I listen a lot to the customer and find out what their goal is for a particular project. So if you have a company that's interested in more long-term goals like improving product quality or decreasing energy consumption, they'll be more interested in spending more to get a higher quality product with a proven track record, as opposed to a company that just needs something, quick to do a little research project that it's a short-term goal and they don't necessarily need something that's going to, last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But the roadblocks I see are common to a lot of industries: workforce development and supply chain. I mean, those are, people can say that, that stuff is done, but we're constantly looking for, to expand our workforce. We're doing manufacturing, opening up new manufacturing plants in other countries simply because we can't find a labor force here in Columbus. So I think that, and along with that is, a solution for that is companies that are more willing to train their employees. And so if you have a training system that is affordable, for employees or prospective employees and is relevant, then I think that's important. I think one of the other things is there's probably some companies that would see workforce as not being a roadblock because they're more interested in selling robots and automation. And so they don't see the roadblocks like that. And we're looking at some of that stuff as well.
That's true. These dark factories that they're talking about, that are at least they're on the horizon. They'll eliminate that workforce challenge, but I don't think we're going to be there realistically anytime soon. Not in any large scale way.
Right. It's a toss-up as to which drives which. So, there's less people in manufacturing, and you'll have some people that will say, well, that's because robots are replacing humans. But most of what we do here at BriskHeat requires human labor. We have some automation, but most of it basically requires to have somebody operating a machine.
So are there any obstacles that you think that might prevent process heating and cooling industry from reaching its goals for things like sustainability?
Well, it's like people have a vested interest in things. Energy companies. Energy companies are not necessarily interested in energy efficiency. We have had a situation at my last company where we were doing steam generators for oil production. And these were in the San Joaquin Valley, which has some of the dirtiest air in the world. And they also have the tightest EPA restrictions on greenhouse gases. But as long as you have companies that are willing to buy carbon credits, they're not going to see the need for sustainability. You also have a lot of people that don't believe in climate change or the needs for sustainability. And because you have people with that kind of thought process, they're not interested. And like I said, a lot of it is a generation kind of thing where, some of the younger people are more concerned and see these issues with, the climate change and how do we, reduce carbon footprint and things like that.
So where do you think any opportunities lie in process heating, process cooling in 2023? And, does that change at all if we look at the time frame and say 2030?
So I think the opportunities that we're seeing, we're seeing more opportunities than ever before for a lot of different reasons. But some are industry specific, like the food industry. Right now, there's extreme weather conditions, and they've really impacted crop yields because of drought and flooding. So this means that heating and cooling are required more so than ever because we need to make sure that the food that is produced is utilized. So it's using heating or cooling as a preservation technique. We can't afford for, food to spoil on the shelves or, during transportation. And in semiconductor manufacturing, there's more emphasis being placed on temperature uniformity because it's different gas mixtures that are being used on these higher end chips now that are smaller width and they're packing more things into them. And so these different gas mixtures require continuous improvement on just the way the heating jackets work and their whole gas processing system. And I think as far as the future, I think a lot of the development and the opportunities are going to be with alternative energy sources and sustainability. I think that's going to be intensifying in the coming years. We talk a lot about the electric vehicles and the innovation needed for them to travel further and faster and to be able to charge faster. That's going to cause a lot of opportunities in the future, also to make the cars more affordable. You need heating and cooling for optimization of the batteries. And the other thing is that with the batteries and the fuel cells, they require lithium. And right now, lithium is primarily processed and refined using solar energy. So they have these big fields where they have the lithium just basically the slurry drying out with the sun. And it's a very long process. And then once it does start to dry, then you have to worry about the lithium being blown away, literally. So I think there needs to be some innovation about how the lithium is processed so that the batteries improving their performance for the electric cars.
Okay. So what do you think are some new technologies that are or will be bringing success to the process heating and cooling industries?
So I think there's new industries that are revolving around things like smart temperature transmitters, controllers, and of course, Internet of Things, IoT. So, like an example, I have a Nest at home, and my Nest learns my habits. It knows when I'm home, when I'm not home, what days that I come home later or earlier than others, and it adjusts the performance of my furnace and air conditioner based on what it knows about me. And they're the same kind of things with process heating and cooling industry, where, those systems are learning a process. So they're going to look at things like deterioration of performance as far as new technology and how to optimize it. I think one of the other things is artificial intelligence. That's something that's exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think artificial intelligence is really going to change the industry as far as how companies utilize their resources. I think some of the other renewable energy sources are going to create other opportunities. And, the new technology and research behind geothermal, biomass, hydrogen, as I've talked about, solar, and a lot of the waste to energy. Material research is one of the other areas that's going to revolutionize the industry. How can we reduce the heat loss so that we can become more energy efficient, looking at different insulating or actually being able to process materials that would be closer to an ambient temperature rather than having to heat and cool as it is. So I think those are some of what the new technologies are going to be and how they can have an impact on the industry.
Good stuff. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm interested in the AI, and I'm also a little, I wouldn't say afraid, just uncomfortable with it at the same time, It's a transformative technology, and we just don't know where it's going to go, and it's going to touch our lives in ways that we can't even predict.
Yeah.
Almost as quickly as you can think something, you can have it done for you, created for you, modified for you, and that's exciting. But it also is ripe for changes that we may get ahead of. It may get ahead of us.
Well, and in some cases, it makes the assumption that everything that's on the internet is true.
That's a great point, too. That's true, too. Like, if you start with the wrong information, you absolutely can go the wrong direction.
Exactly. And the way social media just proliferates all of the information, AI says, oh, look at all the sources I have for this particular, answer to the question that somebody's asking me. And it doesn't really have a way to intelligently fact check.
Right. So, talking overall about the industry, looking forward, process heating cooling is used in so many process industries. I know it's sort of a very broad question to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What would be your single biggest takeaway for those involved with process cooling? If you could offer one piece of advice, what would it be?
At BriskHeat, our mission is to optimize heating solutions that best fit the application. And so I think being able to do critical and creative thinking is probably the best advice to give anyone. Always keep asking yourself, is there a better way to do something? Because inevitably you're going to find a way. So being able to think outside the box, and do it open-mindedly would be my advice.
Good stuff. Well, thank you today, Edye, for joining me to talk about your perspective on the process heating and cooling industry. I've enjoyed our talk.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed talking with you as well.